Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and today on the podcast, we are following on from our series about the frost in Brazil, and we are asking the question why you should care about what's going on with the supply chain, even if you don't buy green coffee. Everybody in the coffee value chain should be taking note of what's happening with regards to Brazil and with regards to coffee shortages that could present themselves over the next few years. So we're going to talk about that in this episode. Before we do get started, if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on podcast listening apps, please also subscribe there, rate, review, share, and help us grow the podcast if you can. So also, before we get started, a quick mention about our presenting sponsor, the small business mastermind groups. If you are a small business owner and you are starting to see or deep into seeing that the challenges ahead are not coming to an end for our industry, we have small groups of people that come together to discuss the challenges that they're having and come up with a bunch of solutions together. It's a really wonderful environment. If you want to hear what other people that are participating in our mastermind groups have to say, head to our testimonials page. Just go to our website, mapperforward.org, and you can see it up the top in the menu, or check the show notes for details. So, today on the podcast, why should you care about what's happening with the coffee supply chain, even if you don't buy green coffee? Well, because this is going to affect every part of our industry. Just to quickly recap, in July, Brazil had 3 bouts of frost, Brazil being the number 1 coffee producing country on the planet. We've got number 1, number 2, number 3 coffee producing countries that are experiencing severe challenges, whether it be through climate, logistical issues, COVID, etc., etc. Now, no matter where you are in the value chain of the coffee industry, if supply is reduced and demand is increasing at the rate that it's increasing, what you're going to start to see is job losses, businesses closing, difference in consumer behavior. There'll be a shifting between specialty and commodity and specialty, depending on which is more available and how affordable both of them become. We're going to start to see shifting in our industry, and arguably it's already started. Now, if you are not a part of adapting to that, if you are not a part of cultivating a plan for 10 years into the future, it's highly likely that you may no longer be able to function in the industry the way that you always have. Now, this will take some time. Don't get me wrong. This isn't like there's going to be an all of the sudden shift and nobody's going to be able to do things the way that they used to do them. That's not correct. What we're going to start to see is a gradual shift over time. And as I said, arguably, we're already starting to see that. Now, in our mastermind groups, particularly in our Roasters mastermind group, we've been talking at length at the moment about making sure that people have their supply chains locked in. What's going to happen if Brazil can't supply the amounts of coffee it has previously been able to fulfill? What that means is that larger companies like Nestle, like Unilever, like all of these big coffee buying companies, they are going to go and secure their supply chain with producers that they've never worked with before. Those producers having the security of being able to sell their entire crop to larger companies are going to have to prioritize, is the right word. They're going to have to prioritize those buyers over having to cut up their crop and try and put in extra effort to find buyers piecemeal for their crop. And yes, prices are going up on the C market, but also the cost of inputs are going up. If There is a shift in the direction that the green coffee is being funneled towards companies like Nestle, towards companies like Starbucks, towards companies like Dunkin' Donuts and Unilever that perhaps before weren't buying from this sector of producers that you used to get your coffee from, or the people who own the cafe that you work at, or the people who own the roastery that you pack coffee in. And their supply is now stifled. It's going to be harder for them to find green coffee. That keeps you in a job. They may have to cut back on their workforce and put in automation. These are the kinds of things that we want you to start thinking about. I want you to start thinking about having conversations with the people that you work for, even if you're not involved in buying green coffee. If you're a cafe that buys your roasted coffee already done and packaged, whether it's branded for you or it's branded by the company that you buy coffee from, you may think that, well, I don't buy green coffee. I don't have to worry. There's plenty of roasters that are around to supply me with coffee. I know a number of roasters. Let me put it this way. The majority of wholesale roasting companies out there are dropping their wholesale programs. And they're doing that because, one, it's getting ridiculous to compete. Cafes are getting squeezed. And so they're looking for this race to the bottom kind of model where they're saying, well, I can't afford it, so you have to offer me less. Prices are going up. And cafes being unwilling to put their prices up is going to mean that we're going to see more of them close. Now, so if you're a cafe that doesn't buy coffee, that's a reason why you should start getting informed about what's going on in the supply chain. Understand where your coffee's coming from and ask the questions. Whether you own a cafe or whether you work in a cafe or anywhere in the value chain that doesn't directly deal with buying green coffee, find out what plan the person who does buy your green coffee has in place to adapt to the changes that are happening in the value chain, in the supply chain, If you're not having those conversations, you are going to find yourself in some deep shit in the coming years. Conversation after conversation after conversation that I'm having. And in a recent Aussie Coffee Town Hall, it was spoken about very openly that people who lean on spot coffee are going to see that supply completely eliminated. And it's going to be tough for people to make sure that the contracts that they're securing, if they're not large enough contracts, actually get delivered. Now, if you don't know that this is happening, how can you get ready and prepare for adapting when your roaster says, I can't give you the Brazilian coffee that you've had in your blend for the last 4 years, or we can supply you with coffee, but you need to understand that it's going up $3 or $4 a kilo or $10 a kilo. How are you going to prepare for those shifts? Because when those prices go up, they're going to go up immediately. Are you going to be prepared to have those conversations and raise those prices and pass them on to your customers immediately as well? So please, 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 please start getting informed about what's going on with your supply chain. Understand how coffee is traded. Understand what this means for you. Start getting informed on the C market. It's called the ICE exchange in New York if you're looking for it online. It's not called the C market. But I mean, you'll be able to get there eventually. But if you're looking to get a direct understanding of what it is, hit up the ICE exchange in New York for coffee. You'll start to see graphs of what it's been doing. You can watch episodes of this podcast for a breakdown of it. Join one of our mastermind groups. There's a lot to learn. Start having conversations with green suppliers. Start having conversations with your roasters. This is a really important issue, friends. And I'm concerned that if you are not directly involved in buying green coffee and roasting your own coffee, that you're perhaps allowing other people to figure this out for you, and you will just react to what comes. I'm always a fan of being proactive rather than being reactive. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Not a conversation when I'm talking on my own. I hope you've enjoyed this information. Please don't forget to subscribe, share it with your friends. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day.